G'day gamers, Ranger Tony here with another Pathfinder Kingmaker build video. Today we're going to look at Archery Rangers. So I've done a basic intro to the Ranger class. Today we're going to specialise on the Archery combat style, and we're going to look at that across all of the 4 archetypes. What race is recommended for archers? Well, Archery Rangers. The game says that the 2 stats that you need are dexterity and wisdom. So let's look at the races based on that. Humans, of course, are a good choice. You get a +2 to one ability of your choice, and you get an extra feat at first level, which will come in very handy. And you get an extra skill point. It's nice, but as a ranger, you actually get quite a few skill points anyway, so that's okay. Elves, with their bonus to dexterity, are good. Their bonus to intelligence doesn't help you a lot. Having said that, you could take the 2 points out of that and put them somewhere else, like Constitution, for example. So they're a fine class. Elven Rangers are a very popular way of going. So that's cool. Some of their other abilities, like keen senses and things like that, do make them do work well with Rangers. Dwarves have no real negatives. They've got a bonus to wisdom, which wisdom being one of the attributes of Rangers is quite good. Bonus to Constitution is not really necessary for a Ranger because you start with 1d10 of hit points, and Charisma is not an ability that you really need as a ranger, so your deficit there isn't going to hurt you. So dwarves are actually a pretty good choice, and in fact, one of the most prominent rangers in the Pathfinder universe is a dwarven ranger. I don't remember his name, but he appears in a lot of the source material as a ranger of note. Gnomes and halflings don't have any great positives or negatives. Well, gnomes don't. They've got some negatives in the negative in strength, but being a archery ranger, strength is not a big deal for you. Constitution and charisma aren't things that you really need, so there's no huge advantages there. Halflings, with their bonus to dexterity, will make okay rangers once you get over the fact that you're going to do less damage around that whole small race, less damage thing. Half-elves and half-orcs, like I've said in most of my build videos, are very similar to humans. They get the 2 bonus points to 1 ability. Half-elves can focus on 1 skill, but skills aren't a big thing for rangers. Well, they are. There's some skills that are good for rangers, but, so half-elves would be alright. Half-orcs, again, with their +2 to 1 ability, goes in well. They get an extra skill per level. That'll work alright. Aasimar, again, there will be an Aasimar heritage that will work well for you. There is one, I think it's the mundane one, which has bonuses to dex and wisdom. So you can definitely find an Aasimar that works well for you. I'm going to pick human because I want that extra feat, and we'll see why that is as we get further into this build. So I'm not going to go too much detail into all the information that it says in all the different ranges, but suffice it to say, any of the 4 ranges will work well as an archery ranger. The default ranger has the advantage of having favoured enemies, which not all of the rangers have, and having the animal companion. You can take an animal companion, or you can take a companion bond with your companions. I definitely recommend taking the animal companion. That will work well for you as an archer, because the animal companion will be able to be in the front lines as a fighter, doing the damage while you're back there supporting them from a distance with a bow. So that will work well. Freebooters don't have favoured enemies, and they don't have animal companions. What they do have from level 1 is the freebooter's Bane, which allows them to point out an enemy, and that's as a move action, you have to remember that, and their allies get a +1 bonus to hit and damage, which increases as they go up levels at 5th level and every 5 levels after. That is a good feature, but because it's a move action, you can't move and do that in a round. That's not a big deal for an archer though, because generally you're going to be at the back of the party. You can point out the opponent and then shoot at them in the same round. If you're a melee freebooter though, if you're using any sort of melee weapons, pointing out your opponent and then having to charge into battle doesn't work as well. You actually lose a round there because it takes up your movement. So in a lot of ways, freebooters play a little bit better as archers because they don't lose that fluidity, that ability to move throughout the battle while they're pointing out their opponents. And you'll want to use that ability a lot because it's powerful and there's no limit on it. You can use it all day long if you're going to play a freebooter. Flame Warden can also be an archery ranger. You'll get these bonuses that the Flame Warden gets that allow you to set your, basically enchant your weapon as a flaming weapon. You get some other abilities here which do things like allow you to be resurrected because you're sort of related to the Phoenix, and stuff like that, but a lot of the rest of the abilities are tied around this fire stuff, and I'm not going to go into them in too much more detail. I talked a little bit about them in my intro. I will probably do another video on just on Flame Wardens at some point. But you will be able to do that. And Stormwalker is built around the archery feat. You don't get any other choice. When you get to 2nd level, you have to pick archery. And like the Flame Warden, you get the ability to enchant your weapons with lightning. Rather than the fire that the Flame Warden does. So you get a few other abilities as well, but that's the main one that sort of impacts your weapon, particularly at earlier levels. So any of those will work well. I'm going to pick the default ranger for this one, just as we head to the next screen. So now we get to pick our options. As we can see here, it recommends dexterity and wisdom. So the first thing I recommend, if you're playing anything with a racial bonus, put that in dexterity straight away, and then build on that. So we're going to take the dexterity up to 18. We could go higher than that, but we're going to stop there for the moment and see how many points we've got left. So we've got 15 points here. Now you've got 2 complete dump stats. Int and charisma, sorry. You don't need them for this build. If you wanted to, you could drop them as low as possible to get some extra points to play with. The problem is that if you drop intelligence, you're going to lose skill points. So you only lose 1, which is pretty good because even any other race, humans get a +1 point at 1st level, so they get 5 points. Rangers get 4 points in any other race, so you would be down to 3 if you dropped your intelligence down. You may or may not want to do that. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to leave it at the default values here. I don't usually like to put negatives in any of my stats if I can help it. So we're going to leave it there. Now, there's actually a few ways that you can build this. Constitution is debatable as to whether you really need it. You start off with 11 hit points. You'll get 10 hit points per level, but if you threw an extra couple of hit points in here, you'd get more hit points. The problem is, though, you're an archer. You're not supposed to be in the front line, so I don't really recommend putting any points into Constitution at this point. Instead, your other 2 options are the recommended Wisdom and Strength. Now, I'm gonna raise this, and this is probably going to be controversial. The only reason to raise your Wisdom is to get access to the Ranger spells. But the problem is you don't get access to these spells until it's either 4th or 6th level. We'll probably see it in a minute. And the spells that you get as a Ranger are not that great. So even if you get these spells at 4th level, first of all, the maximum Wisdom you should ever put in is you should only ever go to 14, because that will give you enough points that you can cast spells from all 4 levels. Once you get to the point that you're casting 4th level spells, you're probably going to be quite high level anyway. Whether you know, if you need to, you can find an item to increase your wisdom even higher, which will probably give you some extra spells per day. But my argument is the spells that you get as a ranger aren't that great, and you get them late. That's the problem with the ranger in general. You get a lot of things, but you get them late. You can pick a weapon specialization, a weapon, you know, an armor, sorry, a combat style, but you can't pick that until level 2. You get things like animal companions and spells, but you don't get those until levels 4 or 6, whatever it is. So it almost feels like these things are tacked on. I have played rangers in other games, Neverwinter Nights 1 and 2, where I had my wisdom at 10 and did not get spells because I didn't see the need for them. The spells that I was getting weren't that great. Now, there is a fairly decent first level spell that you get as a ranger called Hurricane Bow, which basically makes it so that your weapon is increased in size by 1 size rating so that it does more damage, and that lasts for a minute per level, I believe. So that will allow you, if you cast that at the start of a battle, it'll allow you to do more damage with that weapon. That's all it will do. Just increase the damage range. If it was a longbow that normally did 1d8, it would now do 1d10. If it was a heavy crossbow that normally did 1d10, it would do 2d6. That sort of thing. So it's not necessarily going to improve the lower end damage, but it's going to improve the maximum damage that you can do with that weapon. A nice spell to have, and you as a ranger you get a few little buffs and things like that, and in particular that can help your animal companion if you've got them, and stuff like that. But the fact is, by the time you get even those early first level spells that you get, you can already have in your party a dedicated divine spellcaster or arcane spellcaster who'll be able to do similar or the same buffs, and they will probably have spells at that point that will buff the entire party, not just one person at a time. So you really have to look at it and say, is it really necessary for me to have this ability to cast spells? And I tend to say no. There is one exception. If you want to go a little weird with this, and I've done this before, where you build an entire party of rangers, in which case you probably want all of them to have wisdom sufficient that they can cast spells, because you've got no other spellcasters. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll show you a standard build that has the minimum of 14 decks, or the maximum of 14 decks. So we can build with decks, and then we can flesh the rest out with strength. That gives us a nice +3 to strength. It'll do 2 things. That'll give us some carrying capacity, and it will allow us, if we use a composite longbow, to do some extra damage. So it will add 1.5 times our strength modifier, so 1.5 times 3 is 4, because it will round down, so we'll get a +4 to damage with a composite longbow. Some other options that you could do, if we took some points out here, we could take the dex up to 20, but that would only give us the ability to go to 13, so we'd get 1 extra point of damage with the longbow. But if we then dropped this wisdom back to 10, I'm not going to go to 9, it's a misclick, we can put our strength at 15, which gives us a +2, +3 if we're using the composite bow. So there's some options there. I don't necessarily recommend going all the way to 20 because you waste so many points doing that, but you're getting a +2 bonus here anyway, so that will work okay. So let's just leave it. Let's leave it as that. Skill points. The main skills that I feel you need as a ranger are perception, law, nature. This helps you. This will you make yourself the person who hunts whenever you camp. I prefer law, knowledge, world. Um, Athletics and stealth are fine, but I don't really use stealth much in the game. I would probably take trickery so that I am a backup to be able to pick any locks that, if I'm using Lindsay as my primary rogue type character, she would normally pick a lock, and if she fails, I could try it. And then I would probably pick persuasion as well, because I need that skill. You don't need it, but it comes in handy as the Baron. You're going to have times when you're going to need to do persuasion type things. So that's the skills that I would pick there. I've still got 1 point left over here that I didn't put somewhere, so let's just put that into wisdom. I'll get first level spells, but I don't really want them. Okay. Now, abilities, feats to choose. You're going to, at second level, be able to get your first combat feats. The combat feats for Archer at second level are point blank shot, precise shot, and rapid shot. They're all, well, point blank shot and precise shot are very important to get, and to get them as soon as possible. And you can't get rapid shot until you've got point blank shot. So my recommendation is take point blank shot. Whoops, I double clicked and got something I didn't want there. And then take precise shot. Take them now, you've got them straight away at first level. Point blank shot gives you a +1 bonus to anything less than 30 feet, which most of your encounters are going to be. Precise shot removes the -4 penalty when you are attacking opponents that are engaged in melee combat. Now, if you want to play another race, like elf, dwarf, halfling, what have you, my recommendation is still take point blank shot initially, and at second level, when you get your archery style combat feat, take precise shot. That will then negate that. At first level, though, what you're going to want to do is always pick the outliers. Shoot at anyone who's not engaged in combat directly if you can. That will mean shooting at the other archers that are shooting back at you. Shoot at any mages, clerics, anyone like that that's standing back and using spells or any sort of ranged weapon. They will be who you target first, because you will not get any penalties shooting against them, because unless they then become directly engaged by one of your companions. But if you start by shooting at them, you're going to get over all of those problems. We then have to pick a favoured enemy. But before we do that, I'm going to talk more about the feats, the other feats that you will be able to take eventually. So at some point you're going to want to take weapon focus. I recommend taking that at level 3 as a human. So at level 2, when I get my combat style feat, I'm going to take rapid shot. At level 3, I would recommend looking at weapon focus for longbow. If that's the bow that you're using, you can use a crossbow. Longbow has more advantages. The other archery feats that are available, let's see if I can find these. Sorry, here I missed one. Deadly aim. Okay, you don't get this as a archery style feat at all. I don't know why, but you don't. So take that as soon as you can. It gives you a -1 penalty to hit, but a +2 damage to +2 bonus to damage. This works on any type of bow, be it longbow, short bow, light crossbow, or heavy crossbow. It works on all of them, so you don't need to worry. And as you go up through levels, that or attack bonuses, that penalty increases, but so does the damage. So that's a good one. If you're not hitting your opponents, though, turn it off, so you do less damage, but you hit them more often. But otherwise, leave it on all the time, and it will increase your damage. So that's a good one to get later on. As I said, it doesn't come as a bonus feat, so you'll want to pick that up at like level 3 for any of the odd numbered levels where you get a bonus feat or an extra feat. Apart from that, the other archery feats are all in the unavailable section at the moment. So we've seen rapid shot. Once you get to 6th level here, it will add improved precise shot, point blank master, and many shot to the list. Many shot, well, actually we can do the improved ones first because they are down here. Improved precise shot here. You normally have to have a base attack bonus of 11, but you can take that at level 6 if you want. I would almost recommend it. It's up to you. It doesn't seem like it's all that useful to me. I haven't seen many situations where an opponent is concealed, except maybe if you're using, if you have the blind combat feat, which allows you to fight when you're blinded or gives you a bonus against invisible opponents. So that might help you against invisible opponents. Many shot is useful if you're using bows. Crossbows you cannot use many shot with. That's the only one of the archery feats that I have found so far that don't work with crossbows. So if you're using crossbows, it won't work. Longbows and composite bows, it will. And then there is point blank master here. That just normally you need to be level 4 fighter and a weapon specialization to have that. You can get that now through one of your combat style feats. What this does is when you're getting attacked, you don't provoke a attack of opportunity when you shoot your bow. So if someone is actually in front of you meleeing you and you shoot, normally that act of shooting would provoke an attack of opportunity and they would be able to attack you while you're trying to shoot. Point blank master gets rid of that. Now when you look at it, it shouldn't be that essential. If you're playing this right, they shouldn't be getting that close to you. But it's a nice skill to have when it's there. And there is another skill which is mentioned, pinpoint targeting, which doesn't appear to exist. Because as you can see here, it's not there. I don't see pinpoint. This is alphabetical. It's not there. And I've looked and looked for this and cannot find it anywhere. So that's the only other archery style feat. So most of them you can get early. You will want to get the first two at first level if you're playing a human. Otherwise, so point blank shot and precise shot get at first level. If not, get precise shot at second level, and then at third level pick up rapid shot. If you're not a human. If you are a human at third level, I recommend taking the deadly aim, and then later on, if you're not a human, take deadly aim later on. Many shot, if you're using a longbow, will definitely be what you want to take as soon as you can, so you'll probably take that at level 6. Other sorts of skills that are useful, dodge is useful, improved initiative is useful, weapon focus is useful. I don't recommend getting any melee skills unless you're finding that you don't have anything else to take and you want to take some. But the idea is I never carry a backup melee weapon on my archers. I expect my bow to do all of the work. If I do have a backup weapon, it'll be something very exotic like a cold iron dagger or something like that. I don't tend to say, oh well, I'm going to carry a big two-handed sword or something like that. You're not geared to do that sort of damage, and in that close combat, you're not going to be anywhere near as effective as other party members, so I try to avoid that as much as possible. And in fact, I try and get out of the way if someone is coming to directly attack me, and try and get my melee fighters in front of me so that I don't have to worry about that. For the favored enemy, it's very situational. I would, early game, you could pick reptilian humanoids because there are a lot of kobolds, for example. You could pick undead, is always a good choice because there's always a lot of undead in these sorts of games. Human is a good choice because a large percentage of the bandits that are in the early game are humans. I'm led to believe that giant humanoids are a good choice because there are a lot of trolls and those sorts of things you see in there's trolls in early. There's one troll early in the game. They mention trolls a lot in the advice text that pops up between scene changes, for example, and there's the frost giant in the tutorial that you don't get to fight, but it's obvious that giants are fairly prevalent in here. In fact, some of the mythology and lore that you get presented with at times about the game suggests that at one point in the distant past, the world was ruled by cyclopses. So giant humanoids, I feel, would always be a good choice. And if you don't pick dragons at some point, you're probably insane because there's probably going to be a dragon in here somewhere. I don't know, I've not got that far, but I'm pretty much assuming it. Things like constructs, phase cover a lot of different options. Aberrations cover a fair few different options. Outsiders covers a few different options, and monstrous humanoids covers a few different things as well. So, and magical beasts too. I wish it would tell you when you clicked on here some of the examples of creatures that fell into those categories, or that the encyclopedia in the game gave you the information about what categories these creatures fell into. Because, for example, if you know that there's a lot of werebeasts in the game, for example, then you could know what thing to select, but I'm not sure what those all are at this point. But yes, there are. I generally go with giants, and then the next thing I look at would be things like dragons, aberrations, outsiders, magical beasts, those sorts of things. Because it's the things that you know are going to be hard. Constructs, another good one. Things that you know are going to be hard to kill that you want these bonuses on. We don't get any spells, so that's pretty much it for the archery character. As I said, you want to be in the back line. Longbows are a better choice, but you can use crossbows as well. You just won't be able to use many shot. The one disadvantage you're going to have in general seems to be that you've got one less combat style feat than everyone else, because one of the feats just doesn't exist. So that's it. I hope you like this build. Let me know in the comments any thoughts on that, and I'll see you in the next video, guys. Thanks a lot.